Hello again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave, and in this video we're going to do a bit of a tutorial about the basics of chord construction and how to build triads. This is actually a bit of a rehash of a video that I shot a long time ago. I think it was one of the first videos that I did for this channel. But it's one I found myself referring back to quite often because it's quite a fundamental concept. But looking at it again, that video itself, it was shot with old camera, old tech, and it's looking a bit dead. It's not particularly good quality recording, so I thought it's probably about time to give it a bit of a refresh. So what we're going to look at in this video is explaining what chords are, explain how to build simple 3-note chords called triads, how to harmonise out a major scale in triads, and help you to understand what chords belong in a key and why they belong there. Probably quite a bit of theory to cover, but hopefully nothing too complicated, and you can kind of follow it as we go through. One thing you do need to be familiar with though is the major scale. So if you're not, let's just quickly recap that. Major scale, if we think of it not so much in terms of notes, but think about it as like intervals between notes. So we start from a root note, so let's start from C. That's our 1 tone, and we'll go up by an interval of a whole tone, or 2 semitones, 2 frets. C, that gets us to D. Then we'll go up another interval of a whole tone, or 2 semitones, gets us to E. Then an interval of a semitone gets us to F. An interval of a whole tone, or 2 semitones, gets us to G. Another interval of a whole tone, or 2 semitones, gets us to A. Another interval of a whole tone, or 2 semitones, gets us to B. And then finally one more semitone up gets us back to C, which is where we started from. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to the octave. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's the C major scale. If you're not so familiar with scale theory, if you go to the PhatPhish website and download a copy of PhatPhish, there's links in the information section down there. You can use PhatPhish to kind of visualise where the notes of the different major scales are, so you can dial in, well, any scale, but in this context you can dial in any major scale, any root note. If you're using different tunings and so on, you can kind of retune the virtual fretboard in PhatPhish so you can match the tuning that you're using on your own guitar. So if you haven't got that, it's well worth downloading a copy. It is free to use as just donationware. If you like it and you want to donate something, then you can do. And what I do ask though is if you just register to let me know that you're using it, and I know how widely used PhatPhish is. But anyway, sorry, that's turning into a plug for PhatPhish. So yeah, going to be working with the major scale. So let's talk now about triads. Now triads are 3-note chords. Triad, tri means 3. And what we're going to do when we build a triad is we're going to start from a root note, which we're going to call a 1 tone, or root note, and then go through and basically take alternate notes from a scale. So in the case of C major, our root note, our 1 tone, is going to be C. We'll miss out the second and take the third. So the 3 tone is E. Miss out the 4th and go to the 5th, which is G. So those 3 notes, C, E and G, give us the notes we're going to put together to give us a C major triad. So if we play those 3 notes together, we get a C major triad. So it sounds like, we could play it here. So those 3 notes play together, C major triad. You've probably already come across that if you've been playing guitar for a while. You're probably familiar with this shape. That's 6-note chord played in the open position, but if you look at the notes involved, we've got an E, a C, an E, a G, a C and an E. So only using C, E and G. They're in different arrangements there, but C, E and G, it's a C major triad. So if there's more than 6 notes being played, there's only 3 note names, C, E and G, so it's a C major triad. Or you could just think of that being played, say, on the top 3 strings, C, E and G. Just a quick point of detail, if we play the notes together, it's what we call a chord. If we play them sort of in sequence, it's called an arpeggio. Don't get too hung up on that though. It's just a musical term meaning notes of a chord played melodically rather than harmonically. But it's the same notes involved each way, whether it's a C major triad or a C major arpeggio. C, E and G. Right, so that's C major triad. What next? Well, I want to talk in this video, kind of show you how to harmonise out a major scale in triads. What this is going to involve is building a triad on every degree of that scale, and we can see what chords we've got available within the key. And that's kind of important because it's those chords that we can put together into progressions, to give us something that we can, we compose chord progressions and then play melodies over the top of it and all that. So, I've already built a chord on the first degree of C. Let's take a look at the second degree of C major, which is D. Now, if we take the first, the third and the fifth degree of D major, these are the notes of D major. And so we can see we've got a D first degree, we've got an F sharp as the third degree, and we've got an A as the fifth. Now that third degree in D major triad is going to cause us a problem in this particular example because F sharp doesn't belong in the key of C major. So if you think what we're doing is taking the notes of C major and we're building a triad on each degree. So on C, we've got C major, we're going to go up to D, and we want to build a triad on there. Now if we play a D major triad, that F sharp doesn't actually belong to the key of C major, it's an outside note. So we need to actually alter it in some way to make sure that it does fit in. So what we can do is take the F sharp, lower it by a semitone from F sharp to F natural. That gives us a chord with the notes D, F and A. So that chord there has a much different sound to the C major chord. Think about that chord there, D chord that triad we've just built, has a bit of a sad sound to it as opposed to C major. A bit happier sound. And it's all about that third degree. If we've got a natural third degree, it gives us a major triad. It's called a major triad because a major chord has the same notes as the major scale. A C, an E and a G belong in the C major triad, they belong in the C major scale, though they're 1, 3 and 5 degrees. That D chord, the third degree has actually been lowered by a semitone, so we call that a flat third degree. Now a flat third doesn't belong in a major scale. It does belong in a minor scale though. Minor scale, if you're familiar with that, great. If not, basically one of the differences between a major scale and a minor scale is that the minor scale has a flat third degree in it as opposed to a natural third. There's an interval of only 3 semitones between the root and the third degree as opposed to an interval of 4 semitones between the root and the third degree in the major scale. So that flat third degree, we call that a minor chord because of that flat third degree. It's got a formula of 1, flat 3 and 5. So in the case of the D root note, we've got a D, an F and an A. Or we play it on the top 3 strings. D, F and A. So we've got C major as the 1 chord, and we've got D minor as the second chord. And we can go through the major scale and do this exercise on every degree of the scale. So we'll start on E as the root note and take alternative notes from the E major scale. Go from E, G sharp and B. Again, G sharp doesn't belong in the key of C major, it's not diatonic, but if we lower that G from G sharp, G natural, give it a flat third degree, it gives us a chord with 1, flat 3 and 5 again. E is the root note, 1, flat 3, 5 means it's a minor triad, so that's an E minor triad, which is this one. Next note up is an F. We take the 1, 3 and 5 of F, we get F, A and C. Those notes are diatonic to our parent major scale of C major, so we can keep those as they are. So we say that in the key of C major we have an F major chord. Similarly, if we go up to the G, we've got a G, a B and D as the 1, 3 and 5. If you look at the notes of G major, take 1, 3 and 5, G, B and D, they belong to the key of C major, so as their diatonic we can say we're going to have a G major chord in the key of C major because the notes of G major belong to the parent key of C major. Go up to A, there we've got an A, a C sharp and an E. If we take the 1, 3 and 5 degrees of A major, that C sharp's not going to work in the key of C major, so again we do what we did with the second and third chords, lower the third degree from 3 to flat 3, gives us A, C and E, three notes there that are diatonic to the key of C major. Because this chord's got the formula 1 flat 3 5, call it A minor because it's a minor triad. Something interesting happens when we get onto the 7th degree of the C major scale. We end up on a B. If we take the notes of B major and take the 1, 3 and 5, we get B, D sharp and F sharp. Now neither the 3rd or the 5th degree in this case are diatonic to the key of C major, so we need to lower those by a semitone. So the D sharp will lower it down to a flat 3rd of D, and the F sharp will lower that down by a semitone from F sharp to F natural. So that gives us a triad with the formula 1 flat 3 flat 5. Now for all that's got a flat 3rd degree in it, it's not a minor triad. Minor triad has the formula 1 flat 3 5. This has got the formula 1 flat 3 flat 5. There's an interval of a diminished fifth between the 1st and the flat 5th degree, so we call this a diminished triad. If you haven't come across things like diminished fifths before, don't worry too much about it. It's just a name for a triad in the context of this conversation. Formula 1 flat 3 5 diminished triad. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've just done. We've gone through the C major scale, we've built a triad on each degree. So starting on the 1st degree we've got a C major triad, 2nd degree we've got a D minor triad, 3rd degree we've got an E minor triad, 4th degree we've got an F major triad, 5th degree we've got a G major triad, 6th degree we've got an A minor triad, 7th degree we've got a B diminished triad, and then back on the octave 1st degree we've got the C major triad again. So you can hear that, playing that sequence of triads, it all sounds kind of right because we're only using notes that belong to the key of C major. So that example there we worked in C major, but we can translate this to any scale, because what we've got is a generic set of formula for these triads. So this is what we've just done. We've taken the notes of the key of C major, harmonised them out in triads, but if we think about that in terms of a formula, we've got something that looks like this. Okay, so we could take another scale, say A major, and if we harmonise that out in triads, we're using these generic formulae and we're applying them to each degree of that parent major scale, and from that we can build a sequence of chords, and that gives us the A major scale harmonised out in triads. So we've got an A major triad, we've got a B minor triad, we've got a C minor triad, we've got a D major triad, an E major triad, an F sharp minor triad, a G sharp diminished triad. Okay, so this is something a piece of knowledge you can take and you can apply this to every major scale that you come across, and you can adapt it slightly and use it for different scale types. But that's another lesson for another day. Really, we're just concentrating here on triads in the context of a major scale. So this is something, if you spend a bit of time getting yourself familiar with this theory, and then sit down with your guitar or your pen and paper and just pick a key, and like I said before, if you're not familiar with all the major scales, if you use something like PhatPhish, it'll show you what notes are available in each key, and then take those major scales and harmonise them out in triads, and you'll find you always end up with a major triad on the 1st, 4th and 5th degree, a minor triad on the 2nd, 3rd and 6th degree, and you always end up with a diminished triad on the 7th degree. Again, that relation is kind of important. But once you've got those triads, you've got those chords, you can play them in different arrangements to give you chord progressions, and for them, then when you've got chord progressions, you can build melody lines over the top, and that's how songs and you know, pieces of music kind of come into being. It's a sequence of chords which have a relationship between them. They belong to the key, and then scale over the top using notes that belongs to the key, and it all kind of hangs together. One last thing that I want to talk about is chord inversions. Examples we've been playing here, we just assume that the lowest note in the chord is the root note, so 1, 3 and 5. What you can do though is you can invert the chord, and by inverting the chord you play a different degree as the lowest note in the chord. So we have a first inversion, the 3rd degree of the chord becomes the lowest note, and if you play a second inversion, the 5th degree becomes the lowest note. It's just more of an instruction about how to play the chord. The way that the notes are arranged, it doesn't actually change the notes that are involved in the chord. You still have the same notes, they're just kind of arranged in a different order in terms of which is the lowest and which is the highest. One other thing as well, you've noticed that we're talking very much about the notes that's involved in chords here rather than how to play them. Been showing you some basic examples on just on the top 3 strings as we've been going through, but obviously because of the way the guitar's tuned and so on, there's lots and lots of different ways of playing those 3 notes from any given triad. Some of which you'll be familiar with. I kind of gave you the example before of that C major shape, but obviously if you've got a chord dictionary or something like that, you'll be able to find lots of different shapes. Alternatively, if you use PhatPhish, put it into arpeggio mode, dial in given arpeggios, say like a D minor, it'll show you where the notes of that D minor chord are on the neck, and you can then use that to kind of pick out your own shapes and find ways of playing the notes of any given chord in different positions on the neck in different inversions. Okay, I hope you found that useful. If you did, please click like, please subscribe, please leave a comment down there if you want all the different options that YouTube gives you. If you've got a question that you want to ask me, whether it's about music theory, guitar playing, guitar equipment, anything like that, then if you go here, send your question in via that form. It's usually more reliable than sending a question via a YouTube comment. YouTube's not particularly good at letting me know when comments have been left on videos, and sometimes questions can go unanswered because I simply haven't seen them. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video next time. Bye for now.